Welcome back to Pen to Pod. We are in the back half of season 2 with some amazing episodes lined up for the holiday season. From this episode onwards, we will be releasing weekly. And our next guests are currently this episode, A.L. Sterling, Kaylee Faye, Kaylee J. Allensworth, and Taylor Ann Wright. All amazing episodes that you won't want to miss. I am so thankful I got to chat with A.L. Sterling about her debut, Forsyth Conservatory. It is out now. It actually released in late October. So if you are into dark academia, the occult, and tarot, this is a book for you. Chatting with Sterling was like finding a kindred spirit. She talks so much about being first and foremost a storyteller, and she gives amazing advice on tension, conflict, writing physical scenes, and world building around characters. I hope you pull as much insight from this conversation as I did. Forsyth Conservatory is Ninth House meets Mexican Gothic in a dark academia mystery where the cards are stacked against reason and the price of knowledge is blood. Dahlia Blackburn is a failing bookstore keeper and tarot reader who relies on deductive reasoning, not magic, to cast her fortunes. When a stranger calling himself the Meister walks into her shop and offers 3 times her normal rate for a reading, curiosity and her growing debts compel her to accept. But the reading reveals that the Meister has a far more dangerous proposition: infiltrate Forsyth Conservatory, an elite occult arts graduate school, and investigate the alleged suicide of brilliant but troubled student and puzzle maker Julian Earhart. Desperate to care for her ailing mother after her father's recent death, Dahlia agrees to investigate Julian's death. But inside Forsyth's rose-thorn-covered walls, Dahlia is thrust into the school's ruthless academic circle, including the alluring trees, Aspen and Sequoia, who are obsessed with creating art that doesn't merely imitate life, but transcends it. As the line between performance and passion blurs, Dahlia must confront the truth about Julian, the conservatory, and a dangerous form of magic that isn't taught, but inherited. A.L. Sterling writes dark tales for bright minds. She's the author of Forsyth Conservatory, an award-winning scientist. She also holds a PhD in materials science and engineering and writes dark and sparkling takes where intellect meets intuition. So let's jump in. Here's my conversation with A.L. Sterling. I usually like to start with place with all of my authors as kind of a grounding point, probably because when I read, I love when setting takes on a life of its own. And of course, in dark academia, I feel like setting is super important. But has where you've lived or all the places you may have lived aided or added to in some way your writing?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think, well, first off, I use local legends from North Carolina in the book. So the kind of like Southern Gothic has always been close to my heart because I grew up in the South. And then I've lived in haunted houses. And so I feel like, I grew up as a very like whimsical child. Like I kind of believed that everything was out to get me. And so, I like personified my house and, yeah. And so I already have this kind of relationship with place that is, seeing it as more than just a setting, but seeing it as like an entity already. So that definitely comes out in Forsyth Conservatory.
We could talk the entire podcast about your haunted houses. Because I swear I grew up in a haunted house as well.
I think most houses have some memory to them and some residual energy that, especially as kids, I feel like you're more in tune with.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. I won't go on a tangent. I won't go.
We can talk about ghost hunting too, because that's one of the bits that I do on my Instagram is the ghost hunting adventures.
Oh my gosh. See, I find that so fascinating because you said like kids. So this is where I say my curiosity gets the best of me in these interviews. But you said like kids are more susceptible to it. And I completely agree. In one of like our first homes, my mom used to say this is horrifying. Like if my future child ever did this, I'd be like, we're moving. I would like stop in the middle of the hallway and like stare at something that wasn't there. and like scream bloody murder. And like I wouldn't go near my like certain
Yeah,
parts of the house. And my mom was like, "Oh, I don't like
like the
this at
shadow people
all."
live there. Yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes. That's crazy. Okay, wait. I do want to know a little bit about ghost hunting. What do
Okay,
you
yeah. Yeah, no, totally. I mean, to me, like everything goes back to stories.
Mm,
And the way that I use ghost hunting or like ghost walking, a paranormal investigation is really to bring to light the stories that still need to be told, right? Because I
mm,
think fundamentally that is what being haunted means. It's not that the ghost hasn't moved on, it's the fact that we haven't moved on as people from that
mm,
story. And so I think giving closure to something horrendous that happened can help people move on. So that's the way that I like ethically interact with it. But again, I just think the world is alive and full of stories that need to be told. And so something I've started doing this summer as part of my marketing for my book
mm.
has been to do ghost hunting in North Carolina. And I'm very excited because in November I'm going to the Devil's Tramping Ground with some of my friends.
Ooh.
And I have a chapter in my book based off of that local legend. But essentially, it's like a plot of dirt that's like, I think about like 6 meters in diameter, and nothing grows in it. And it's like in the middle of this like wooded area. And so the legend is that the devil comes there and stomps around, and that's why it's all, dead. But scientifically, and I've done some investigation on this, but scientifically, they say that like the salinity is very high in
Mm.
that circle, and so that's why nothing grows, is because of like salt deposits. But then the question is like, why? Why is there so much salt there? So I don't know.
Yeah.
It keeps getting more curious. So I'm very excited about that adventure that I'm going on in a couple of weeks.
Okay, I will be waiting for that. No, but you're right. Why is there salt there? Are witches doing constant circles there? Are we casting spells there? And now there's so much salt in the ground. This is fascinating.
Yeah, and they
Um,
say anything that goes into the circle disappears.
what?
Yeah, and so like if like people will leave things there and then they'll disappear the next day. So that was like such an interesting premise for me as a
Mhm.
storyteller. It's like, oh my gosh, I want to do something with this story. So I imbued it into Forsyth Conservatory, and so you can read it to figure out how that all ties in. It's a dark academia.
Well, and you said that even for you, like for ghosts, it all ties back to stories. So have
Yeah.
you always considered yourself a storyteller, or when did you decide I want to pursue writing in some way?
I've always been, it's just something that has haunted me and I have haunted it. I think growing up, I wasn't born in the US. My parents immigrated when I was super young. And so, there were periods where like we didn't have a lot of resources, but I always had like a blank page, and I felt like the richest kid having that blank page and just letting my imagination go wild. And I would write all these like mysteries and conspiracies, and again like just imbued like all of my whimsy into my stories of like everything is connected, like everything has meaning. And I think one of the early stories that really resonated with me was the Celestine Prophecy. It was like one of the most popular stories in like the turn of the century, and my dad loved that story. And so, but like if you read like you're paranoid because like there are people walking in the background of this cafe, and you're like, oh my god, do they know about this thing? So I love that. I love the idea of like, oh, I'm actually in a movie, and like
Mm.
there's something going on, there's some kind of scheme.
And you said something there about how like everything's connected. And I know that on your website it said you got your PhD in materials science and
Mhm.
engineering. Do you feel like that sort of whimsical nature about yourself of like everything has to be connected, I have to know the answers? Is that why you pursued science? And how does it play a role in your writing?
Oh, that's an interesting connection and beautiful segue. Yeah, I think I've always been very curious, and I want to know how things work. And so I pursued engineering as a way of honestly kind of like controlling situations,
Mm.
right, like creating experiments and trying to simplify so that we can kind of get to the crux or understand what is fundamentally happening in this phenomena. And so it was a little bit of like my control and sense of control, wanting to like know. But yeah, I mean, I've seen science also as a story, right?
Mhm.
Because one of my colleagues, when I was in my PhD, he said, Alex, like the world, it just is. Like there are no rules. We create the rules to explain the
Yeah.
world. And I just found that so enlightening to me. And I was like, yeah, you know what? Like science is also a story. It's a story that we agree upon. It's a story that we build together, right? And so to me, it's absolutely connected. It's just, what are the tools that I'm using to tell that story? Like for science, I use experiments and data, but for narratives, I use lies.
Yeah, all of us writers are really good. We're whimsical liars.
Exactly.
In our
We're liars.
best way.
Well, we tell the truth with lies. That's what it
Yes.
is.
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah.
That should be some merch for you.
I think
We tell the
I
truth with
actually I don't want
lies.
to claim that one. I think I read it somewhere, so I'm not going to claim it. But I love it. Also, I as part of my writing process, I'm like a method writer, and so
Mm.
I become my characters. So I've been learning like medieval fencing right now for a work that I'm
Oh my
working on,
gosh.
and one of the quotes there was that like fencing is basically just a dance between two liars because like because
Oh.
each fencer they're trying to manipulate the other party to think that they're about to do something and then actually
Hmm.
do something else. And
Yeah.
so I love this idea of like lying.
Yes. Okay, now I have so many questions. I'm like, okay, wait, method writing, fencing. I'm gonna quickly ask a question about fencing, then we'll go back to foresight.
Sure.
The first thing I thought of, one, that's a beautiful way to put it, but I'm like, how do you write those like really physical scenes? I feel like writing a fencing scene or any sort of action scene that you might have in this book as well
Yeah.
can be hard sometimes. I feel like at least when I write action scenes, I'm like, oh, this feels clunky because I'm like, this happened, then this happened, then this happened.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between like stage direction and then
Mm.
like writing a narrative through somebody's eyes, right? Because one thing I've learned with fencing is that the fights happen like that and it's over. Like
Mm.
most fights, real fights, are less than a minute. um,
Oh.
and so I think, like with anything, you rely on like your five senses, right? And so maybe like you don't know exactly what this move is called, but there's like a glint of steel, right? And that's what you
Yeah.
see. And then you like, what do you feel in your body? You feel like this warm patch blooming on your side, right? And so
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
kind of go back to those five senses. And I don't think the reader needs to know all the mechanics and the stage
Mm.
direction in order to get the feeling, because I think fundamentally that's what writing is. It like it evokes feeling. And so if you're describing it enough so that they get that and they understand what's like theoretically happening, then I think that's a success.
Oh, that is really a good tip for anyone writing action scenes. I think that's a great reminder of bring it back to the five senses. Also, I can't believe that fencing fights are like under a minute. That's wild.
Yeah, or at least like one like what is it called? One not match, because like a match has like different
Right.
rounds. I guess round, yeah. So like one
Okay.
round
Yeah,
will
yeah,
be
yeah.
very, very quick.
You know, I'm
Because
thinking of like Parent Trap when they have to like fence each other. And
no, yeah, I just watched the most recent season of Wednesday, and there were
yes.
fencing scenes in there, and I was like, oh my god, it was so good. It was so good.
So, okay, I'm going to also put a pin in your method writing when we get to character for this story. But in your bio, you also say that your writing is rooted in your lived experience, which
Yeah.
I love that you put there because I feel like most writers do this, but I know I definitely consciously do this as a writer too. Like everything
Mhm.
I'm writing about comes from something I've felt or experienced. So do you feel like that's where your like seeds of inspiration comes from, is your real life, or does it come from somewhere else and then you layer those experiences on top of it?
No, I think I'm pretty straightforward. I think, I mean, obviously, like the characters that I write, they are like mirrors of myself, right, in different
Mhm.
dimensions, and maybe I'll like accentuate certain characteristics. Um, so yeah, so but they are parts of me, right? Because yeah, I'm writing them. So that's kind of where it comes from. It's like I have a feeling, or like in life, like there's so many complexities, right? And so like a moment will happen to me and I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to describe the way that this feels. I want somebody else to know that somebody else has felt it. Because I fundamentally, I want people from my books and like my words to like feel seen. That's like why I write. So it's like if I can encapsulate this feeling, then I can give it to somebody else and tell them that they're not alone, that they're going through the same thing.
Right. And why dark academia? I feel like well, one, I love dark academia, and I feel like it's had a huge resurgence, and I love that I don't feel like it's going away. I was so worried when it came out that it was going
Me
to be
too.
like a publishing fad, but I feel like it's now cemented itself as like a permanent genre. So what draws you specifically to writing dark academia?
Gosh, I love it so much. I mean, I've always been an academic, a scholar, and I've always romanticized learning and in some regards like the institutions of learning too, and the systematic and like dogmatic practices that go along with it, and some of the like unsultry parts of academia too, including this idea of like self-sacrificing, right? Like self-sacrificing for your art, self-sacrificing for your work in order to like prove your value and your worth. So that just comes from like my place of like that has been my experience, and I love like interrogating these like heavier themes, and talking about like the dark sides of ourselves, and what happens when our obsession with knowledge or power or this artistic creation kind of create becomes its own entity and kind of backfires. So that to me has always been an interest of mine, and I don't know. It's my, like it feels weird to say, but it's kind of like my comfort zone. Like I feel comfortable in that dark place.
Yeah. And so this is probably going to be the hardest question I ask. I feel like it's the hardest question I ask anybody, but because we know as writers, like inspiration isn't just, oh, we wake up one day and I have like the whole plot for a book. Usually it's like little pieces here and
Yeah.
there. So what little pieces of life or music or anything kind of grabbed at you to build Forsyth Conservatory?
I think my process, I wanted to write a book about tarot. That was like my anchor, because through my lineage, my grandmother was a tarot reader, her grandmother was a tarot reader. I thought the archetypal images of the cards were so intriguing. And when I was doing research, because I was looking for other books that were written about tarot, and I didn't find that many truly. And I was like,
Mhm.
this is somebody needs to do this. That somebody should be me. So then I started studying tarot, and that was such a huge fountain of inspiration, right? Because you have these archetypal energies and these suits, and they represent these like universal truths about life and these doors that everybody kind of walks through when they're going through life. And so each of my main characters are based on a suit of tarot,
Mm.
and they have these like qualities and aspects of tarot to them. And so that was probably my biggest source of inspiration. But then also, like I said, my graduate school experience, and just local legends, like all these pieces that I
Mhm.
interact with on my daily life. I just kind of sat down and was like, what is the story that I want to read? Like, what would make me so excited to read a story. And I put all those things together and I was like, I'm going to make this work.
So once you had all these pieces of inspiration, did you sit out and plot everything out right
Oh gosh, yeah.
away? Okay.
I'm
Okay.
a pantser. I've tried
Wow.
plotting. It just does not
Fascinating.
work.
Okay, so I usually don't dive deeper because I'm like, oh, people know what pantsing is. But like, I'm fascinated because I feel like this book, everything I know about it, is pretty intricate. And like the magic system is
Yeah.
pretty intricate. There's like a lot of characters and there's like deception. How the hell do you pants that?
I'll give you my secret: revision.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course. So do you feel
No,
like the first draft's just like messy, just like absolute
oh
chaos?
yeah, like
Okay.
I don't know what's going on, right? I think the first draft that you write it
Mhm.
for yourself. The second draft,
Mhm.
okay, now you can start writing it for somebody else.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I had inklings of what how I wanted to tie things together, and sometimes I would just like leave breadcrumbs, and I didn't know if like I was going to go and sweep those up later on, and so I just kind of did that as I went, and like for me, I'm such a like emotional or emotive writer. Like I
Mm.
really anchor on like conflict and rivalry and just like tension. And so everything has to go back to that. Like if the world building doesn't relate to that, then you don't
Mhm.
need it. That's fundamentally what I believe. And so like world building should feel like earned. And it's like you're excited to get to know more, and it's not just like this whole like lore dump and maps, and like nobody cares. They only care if it's related to conflict, if it's related to human relationships. And so once I figured those out, and I figure out, okay, my character's motivations and their conflict and like their differences in values, and that's kind of what leads to the conflict, then I can start building the world around that. And that to me is like
Mhm.
so much more intuitive than the other way around.
Yeah. Yeah, I always find it fascinating, like what comes first, chicken or the egg? Because some people I feel like build the world or the place, and
Yeah,
then they're like, okay, who would be in this place? And then it seems like you're very character driven. So you're like, okay, I'm going to make these characters, make them have conflict, different relationships, and then make sure the world building and the magic system kind of works in their favor, which is really
exactly.
cool. Yeah. So you talked about lore dumping. Let's talk about it. I feel like for fantasy or any speculative fiction writing, this is like the bane of part one or act one. It is
Yeah.
like, how do I give the reader all this information without making their eyes glass over? Then they stop reading because they're like, okay, I don't care. So, what tips would you give like writers starting out or writers writing in this genre for how to sprinkle in those exposition moments that you need in speculative fiction?
I think it's, there are a couple of different levers you can use. I think like you don't want your character to like go into the world and kind of have like the tourist effect where they're just like marveling, right, and kind of like learning about the world, because it's like it's to me it's obvious that the author is that character and is trying to
Yeah.
learn about the world. And so just think about people's like day to day, like we take things for granted, like we're not like, oh wow, that's a cool statue, like let's marvel at it. We're just like, oh whatever, like that's a statue of some serpent god, like he's
Mhm.
always been there, right? And so yeah, people like think about what people do. Like they complain about their jobs, they they're just making dinner, they're just going about their life. And so figuring out how can you like sprinkle in the world, but like through a very like normative lens of like this is just what it is, and I don't really care, unless I have a reason to care, right? And then that's where the conflict comes in. And so if like, oh hey, my lands are being invaded, like let's create a treaty so we can protect each other. Now you can like actually put in like now we have stakes associated with that information. So I think information requires stakes. Like there's a
Mhm.
reason that I need to know this information for my safety or for my longevity.
Yeah. No, that's a really good tip of like making sure that, because I guess like through the eyes of your character, every lore dump or exposition they give, like you said, has to adhere to the plot or the stakes. Like there has to be a reason we're talking about it, and they have to have
Exactly.
some sort of emotional connection to it. I like that instead of the tourist effect.
Yeah.
That's a good phrase. That's very
Yeah.
true. Instead of like,
Mhm.
oh, all of this is so fancy and fun. So how long did it take you from like start to finish? I always find this fascinating with Forsyth Conservatory because I feel like obviously every author is different and every book is different.
Yes, this one took me 4 years.
Mhm.
I
Valid,
started,
valid.
yeah, I started this in 2021, and I was part of like this like writing incubator program, and that was super helpful because I was paired with a developmental editor. Shout out
Mm.
Margaret, you're the MVP. And my editor kind of coached me through chapter by chapter and read my hot garbage as I created it. And through that feedback, honestly, like I became so much of a stronger writer. And so that draft ended up at like 60K. I eventually like abandoned that draft because to me it was more of like a discovery draft.
Mm.
And then I think I took a break from writing for like a year and just like thought about the story but didn't commit any words. And then 2023, I was actually like, okay, let me actually sit down and start writing this. And so that's when I kind of did my inspiration cultivation, put down everything I wanted. And then from 2023 to 24, I wrote my first draft was 85K. And then I did a beta revision that got it to like 110K.
Mm.
And yeah, and that's kind of the process. But before then, I've written like half a dozen other novels that like I hope they never see the light of day. They're bad.
We need those first, though. We
Yeah.
need those. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so you're a pantser. You go through on pure vibes and whimsy, which I love, and that's
Hmm.
magical. And then we're getting all the nitty gritty with revisions, but it seems like you're very character driven. So, what does the
Yes.
character process look like? Do you have those characters in your mind before we start, or do you just start and the characters come to you?
I think I start because
Yeah.
again I'm a pantser and I'm like, what are the vibes?
Yeah.
I also believe like every side character is like a mirror to my main character, and they have a
Mm.
very specific purpose. And so because I never want like character to overtake. I mean, there's a reason why my main character is my main character, right?
Right.
And so I
Mhm.
think like everything has to function to serve that arc and that story that I'm trying to tell.
Mhm.
And so I always think of other characters as mirrors to my main character. And it's like, what am I showing you, the reader, about my main character by having this other one, right? So, for example, if it's a foil, like, oh, this like kind of lighthearted, self-deprecating guy, like that juxtaposes Dahlia, who's very, cerebral and moody. And so
Mm.
there's kind of that juxtaposition helps you understand my main character better.
Yeah. That's great. Okay, so it seems like, yeah, you are a true pantser. You're like, let's just hit the page and we'll figure this all out later. That's a later me problem.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, totally, totally.
So then how do you approach revision? I feel like it's a question that I get asked a ton as well. A lot of like newer writers who, okay,
Mhm.
maybe they're a pantser, maybe they're a plotter, but they're done, they're excited, and then they read back like their pages and they're like, what the heck do I do now? Are
Yeah.
you like a murder mystery board type of person where you just got to like visually see the story, or are you going chapter by chapter and making lists? Like, how do you tackle revision?
Yeah, I do lists. I'll like
Mhm.
read my work. I think it's good to have some distance from it for a couple of months. That's my recommendation, just so you can
Mhm.
come in with fresh eyes. But then yeah, I'll go in, read it, and like write a list of like, hey, this emotionally didn't land for me, or like plot wise, this doesn't make sense. This is kind of like a dead end. And so I'll do a list for like each of my acts, and then I'll take a step back and like look at the big picture and say, okay, how can I make these things interconnected better? So, and then I'll just do that. I'll keep doing the list for a couple of rounds until I'm happy with it. I have not been great at like removing scenes. I feel like I'm more of an adder. Like if somebody has questions, I'm like, well, I'm not going to take it out. I'm just going to add a whole other thing. And so that's a bit of a balancing act. And I think, something I can work on as an author is to, to maybe remove things. But I think everybody has their own way of like underwriting or overwriting. I think I'm an underwriter for my first draft, so it's easier for me to add later on.
And then when you go into beta readers, what questions or lens are you hoping that they go into? Like, do you give them a set of questions and you're like, okay, I need this type of feedback? Or do you just say, here's my draft, I want?
Yeah, no, I totally give them questions.
Yeah.
And I think ideally I would love to give different readers like different sets of questions. And so I honestly, the first thing I ask for is like believability. Like, do you believe this? Like, I mean, I'm lying to you right now. Like, do you believe me? Like, do I have enough specificity that you're like, oh my gosh, she couldn't make this up. Like, this is too exact. It's an equation. That math can't be fake. So I think that's my first thing is like, do you believe in this relationship? Do you believe that this person would do these actions? Like, does the motivation make sense? So it's kind of those types of things where from like a developmental standpoint, it's like, does it make sense? Like, do you think a reasonable human being would make these decisions if given this type of circumstance? So I think that's like the fundamental thing that I'm looking for from beta. But then the next step of that is like the emotional resonance. Like, am I actually making you feel the things that I want you to feel? Right. And so asking you like, oh, like, do you feel the chemistry between these two characters? Do you, are you curious about them? Do you want to know more? So that's kind of the next phase. And then probably the third is like, from the plot standpoint, it's like, is this like satisfying? Like, I always want the reader to feel satisfied at the ending where it's like, oh, wow, like I could have figured that out, but I didn't, like that's the best feeling. It's like, oh, wow, she fooled me. That was great. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to this method writing because I find that fascinating. Did you do any method writing then for characters in Forsyth Conservatory?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I became a professional tarot reader.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I started out, I mean, like I said, I was doing my PhD in engineering. I was really downplaying the whole magic thing in my life. But then I started reading tarot and I was having these crazy experiences with people like predicting their breakups and like them getting a job and all these life events. And I was like, wow, like there must be something to it. And so I really, I started getting very good at it. And then I met a friend at a retreat, and she was a professional tarot reader, and she was a psychic, and this is what she did for her living. And so I told her, hey, like, can I give you a reading and you give me like your professional feedback? Like, how can I get better? And I gave her a reading that night, and she was like, no notes, like, you're great. Like, this is really what I needed to hear. And also I would love to recommend you to my boss if you want to come and be a reader at the Renaissance Festival. And so I started reading for the Ren Fair, and now I have a handful of different clients that I see regularly. And it's been so rewarding. It's kind of my side quest of this book, but yeah, and it really helped me like tune in to Dahlia. I think Dahlia and I like our philosophies on reading do not align, even though our methods are very similar. The methods are very similar, but Dahlia doesn't believe in magic. She believes in like cold reading people and the deductive side of like just piecing together people's personas and then telling them what they want to hear. For me, it's more of like I'm tapping into your subconscious. There is this like mystical element of it, of like randomization. Like I don't control what these cards are going to come out to say. So I think I learned the method, but then I adapted it for the character and for her arc, because her arc was that she slowly starts to believe in magic. And so that's what I wanted to accomplish with that.
Awesome. Okay, and so let's talk about the magic. Let's talk about Forsyth Conservatory. How was world building this academic institution steeped in magic? Do you want to talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, sure. So Forsyth Conservatory, so it's a conservatory, so like an arts graduate school, and so I wanted to blend in both like the occult academic research side as well as like the practical side of creating artwork, and so these two things are very intermeshed. So at Forsyth Conservatory, everybody has like their thesis where they're doing academic scholarship, right? And so they're looking at primary sources and research papers and things like that. But then the other side part of it is like they're actually interweaving that into their creations. And so it could be like sculptures. I have a taxidermist at the conservatory, and so she uses like pheasants and all kinds of creatures from the woods. And I also have a singer in there, and so she uses like druidic magic. So from the Druids, she's like been studying them and is like tapping into her lineage that way. I have like a glass sculpture there as well, and a map maker who studies like cartography. So just kind of blending the academic research sciences with the artistry, and then the magic is how do you blend these two or like forge them. And so there's scorn magic, and scorn magic is essentially the magic that is granted through the cards of these like archetypal energies or like universal truths. And so you like imbue your creations with the scorn magic by like feeling the emotions of the cards and like by embodying the cards themselves. And so that's how students are doing this kind of more illegal form of magic at the conservatory, and that's more of the cult aspect of it.
Okay, very cool. And I know that it's set in the 1920s. How does that affect your story, setting it then instead of something like now?
Yeah, I think there's definitely for that turn of the century, there's a lot of like societal pressures, right, and a lot of like changes being made. And one thing that I wanted to have was a very like queer normative, gender normative, race normative world, which was really important to me as a writer to write that representation in there. But you still have kind of the 1920s. It's starting to be like the boom of the occult sciences. A lot of scientific discoveries too are being made, and so interweaving that with like the advisors network. So the advisors are this like they're the graduates of Forsyth, and so now they use their magical sciences to like consult, and so they're consulting like politicians and businessmen and like using magic to like further their aims. And so I wanted to kind of blend that intrigue as well into that setting.
Very cool. Okay, so this is a world where magic is accepted then or known about, or is it still kept secret even though we have these advisors?
It's secret. It's definitely secret.
Okay.
And for Dahlia, like I think one thing that I wanted to create was that tension of like, is this actually real? Or because there is the scientific study of magic, right?
Right.
Of occult sciences, right? Like these are things that are found in books and scholarly research. And so you can approach it from like a pseudoscience perspective, right? But then there's also the fantasy element of like stuff happening that you cannot explain. So there's always that constant tension that is always a thread in Forsyth.
And so with setting it in the 1920s, did you have to do a lot of research for that time? And how did you put all of that in your book?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Like for my setting, it was mostly in the house,
Mm.
and so they weren't interacting like so much with the external society. It was more of like their inward mentalities and the ways that they view the world. And so to me, it was like limited in that sense, but they also had to kind of understand like like societal expectations. So for example, like two of my characters are like betrothed,
Mm.
but like they're very toxic. Like they should not be together, right? But like their parents have already made this arrangement for them and they don't have much of a say. And so then they end up being like polyamorous. And so they're like navigating these things, right? That these like kind of like societal pressures that maybe we do or don't have now in our modern century.
Yeah. Okay, and then you also talked about, at least with your beta readers, making sure that the ending is satisfying and there is a little bit of a mystery in this book. How was that? I feel like that's a really hard plot line to pull off. I always say that like anyone who writes like mystery and romance, those are just like the two hardest things in the world because romance, like we know that two characters will probably get together, so you have to make that believable. Mystery, we shouldn't know what's happening until the very end, but still make it believable. So those two like big plots or subplots are always just so impressive. So how was like the mystery portion of this book?
Yeah, I had to rewrite it a couple of times to make it really land.
Mm.
But I'm very proud of the ending because I think it is very satisfactory and very cinematic. Like I love my last few chapters. It just
Ooh,
feels
I love that.
like I saw it in my head as a movie or as like a play, and it was yeah I'm very proud of it. But yeah, I think to me it's more like I'm not upset if my reader guesses the ending, you know, because
Right.
I think like I like I don't want to fool you, you know? Like I'm not going to take something out of left field because then that breaks your
Mhm.
trust, right? And that's the worst thing a writer can do is break the trust of their reader. And so yes, like of course I'm going to put in twists and turns and you know, make you believe that somebody's your friend and then they're not or you know, like change things. But at the end of the day, like you should kind of know what's coming, but then maybe the way that I execute it and build it all together
Mm.
in relation to like all of the characters, like maybe that is like the surprise, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that mindset too of like you don't need to fool every reader because there are definitely mysteries that I've read where I've been like, "Ooh, I think I know what's going to happen," but you
Yeah.
continue reading because you want to make sure
You want
you're
to prove
right.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you're
Like
like, "Yes, I feel so smart. I did
exactly.
it."
Like please like figure it out. I want you to have that feeling, right? And there's so many like there's so many permutations, there's so
Mm.
many things, right? Like when I'm writing it, I know what it is because I wrote it, but like you as the reader, like you don't know,
Yeah.
right? I mean, not definitively at least. And so I think there's always a chance to be surprised in some ways. So I think that's the mentality that I go in on it from. And but yeah, I think fundamentally I wanted to make sense and I wanted to be believable because I want the reader to be satisfied. I don't want them to feel like I just tricked them at the end.
Yeah. Okay, so let's pivot a little to the publishing side of things. When did you know you wanted to publish Forsyth Conservatory, or was this always in your head when you started this project?
It was not. I wanted to query it, but it took me so long to write, and I, to be honest, like I just had a very arbitrary goal for myself of being published before I turned 30. Like full like transparency. That was my goal. I because I've been writing since I was a kid, and so that was just my goal. And so I knew that I wanted to do like indie self publishing so that I could do it on my own timeline
Mm.
and feel proud of that. So that's what I decided to do. I didn't query Forsyth. I decided to just go after it and was like, let me just try this and see if I can build up an audience, find readers that connect with my story.
So, what has been the best part of indie publishing and maybe the not so best part?
Oh my gosh. I mean, the best part are the readers. Like I
Mhm.
love uh yeah, I started my street team, which is probably the best thing that I did as an indie. I started a street team, and one of my street team members, she named us the Cult Servatory.
Oh,
Uh,
that's so good.
And it was, yeah, and now there are like 70 people in it, and they're the best human beings. They're all like, twisted in their own ways. Like they all love horror and like alternative stuff, and we talk about books all the time. And yeah, they were just so excited about Forsyth Conservatory, and they really enjoyed the world that I built and the characters. And like seeing their experience of my book through their eyes has been the most rewarding part of being an author by far, more
Yeah.
than like any sales numbers or figures. It's been just their experiences relate to me. The least favorite part, I guess, just the constant like imposter syndrome, I would say, because like nobody gave me permission. Like I don't have a degree in writing. I didn't have an agent or anything like that. So it's constantly having to remind yourself that you are a writer, that your story
Mhm.
is worth being shared. And it just honestly being so delusional about that. Just saying, you know what, I give myself permission. I give myself credibility, and I think that the story is meant to be shared.
Yes. We all need to be delusional. That is the key to
That's the
writing.
key one, truly.
I know on your website you have a signed hardcover edition with a fun little gold foil tarot card, but you also have an interactive story box, which I haven't seen yet from an indie author, at least personally. So I'd love to know what that entails and how did you think of doing something like that?
Yeah, for me, I love blending. So the veil between reality and illusion for me is very thin. And I love like playing at that seam. And so for me, anything I can do to make a story feel more alive, and haunted, I will do it. And so one thing I created was the interactive story box. So when you're reading the book, there will be notes inside the book that says "Open
Mm,
envelope A," and
so
then
cool.
yeah, and it's an item related to what's happening in the book. So you're collecting like clues and trinkets, like as your character is actively doing that. And so to me, it brought the storytelling like another level further. And I don't know, like as a reader, I would love for all my favorite books to have that. So I just again, I am like a reader, and I wanted to give
Yeah.
people what I wanted.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I love that. And that, it does like make the reading experience, like you said, like more interactive. You're able to like tangibly hold something that maybe you're reading about on this page, or maybe also imbue yourself a little bit more into the mystery. Because, like you said, oh, I can
Exactly.
get something, and ooh, maybe this means something. So you're like trying to figure out a little bit more alongside
Yeah.
the main character, which is really awesome.
No, it's so fun.
Do you have any advice for people who are trying to go the indie publishing route?
I definitely think having a strong critique group
Mm,
is important, especially to feel like you're ready for it. I think having my beta readers, they're the best humans. They're my closest friends, which some people will say beta readers shouldn't be your friends, but I disagree with that because I think if they're your friend, they want you to be the best possible
mm,
version of yourself, and they will give you constructive criticism. But really, it was like their feedback and their belief in the story that propelled me to do the indie publishing route. So I think that is the best thing that you can do is having a strong group of other writers and readers that you trust, to tell you that your story is ready and that it's meant to be shared. And aside from that, just yeah, like being delusional is always recommended.
yes. That's great. Being delusional and get yourself a close group of beta readers. So you said they're your closest friends. Are these like really close writer friends? So they're also writers, or are they readers first and foremost?
There's a mix. So I sent it
Right.
to a couple writers, but then also to my two friends who we just have the same taste in books. Like we read
Mm,
all the same kinds of books. So they knew the vibe that I was going for. They read dark academia. They knew the genre. And so that was really important, right? Because like you want your editors and your critique givers to be people who read in your genre. I think that's
Yes.
very important. And yeah, and then others, the other side of like the writing aspect and the technical aspect, I think I had like a copy and line editor that I hired for that side of it. And so my beta readers were really just about the vibes and the emotional components of the
Yeah.
story.
So I actually am curious, because it's something that I'm thinking about right now in my own work. Is this story in first person POV?
It is first person, yeah.
Natalia? Okay. So it seems like, again, you're very character driven. You're focused on the emotion, which I think is basically the foundation for most
Yeah.
stories. How do you approach, how do I want to ask this? Basically, I've been thinking a lot about interiority lately with my own
Yes.
characters. I'm also writing first person currently, but sometimes I feel like my character is whiny
Why?
and annoying because I'm in her head like so close. So, how do you feel like you balanced, I guess, like peeling back the layers of your main character's psyche with interiority without making the readers like not like her that much because you're really getting all of her.
Yeah, I really, when I started writing this book, I really struggled with interiority because, to be honest, gosh, this is gonna make me sound like a snob, but I only read classics like up until college.
That's
and
fair.
and interiority it's kind of new. It's like a new
Yes.
modern century writing technique, and it's
Mhm.
because we want these gripping narratives and we want the reader to constantly know what's going on. And so it was really hard for me to write at first because I was like, I feel like I'm over explaining and I'm telling and not showing and all that stuff. But I think for me, it like I've been thinking about it of like how can I show her internal conflict, right? And
Mhm.
that helps me make it less whiny, right? Of like I just show her thought process, right? And I think
Mhm.
it made it easier like writing the story that I did because in the story she's constantly deceiving people and like
Yeah.
she's very transactional. She's like, oh my gosh, like if I let her into my room, then she'll maybe like tell me a secret or whatever. And
Right.
so she's calculating in her head constantly like what could doing something for somebody help her further her goals, right? And so that's like her moral grayness. But just showing that thought process and really just using the interiority to elevate her arc and like
Mm.
her conflict has kind of helped me because then it's not just like me showing her thoughts, but like they actually have a purpose for what I'm doing and like trying to say in the story.
Right. That's really good advice. And then, okay, so interiority, talked about that. I'm trying to think of anything else I like pinned in my head mentally when we've been talking.
What genre are you writing in? Is it fantasy mostly?
It is. It's contemporary fantasy
Okay.
also. So that's why like when you like or we both kind of like mutually reached out to each other. I'd been following you already for this book because like I feel like I don't know, I found almost all of my authors this season like through Instagram, which just is a testament to your guys' marketing because they're the books I want to read. I'm just selfishly interviewing authors of the books that I want to read. Because I'm like, this is my bread and butter. Like, I love this. Everything your book has in it, I'm like, is amazing. But it is like, it's pretty similar. It's like a contemporary fantasy. I had it set in the 1880s, but now it's modern day. That's why I love that you kept it in the 1920s, but it is speculative fiction. So there's magic and occult pretty much.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Wow. I didn't know I was
Yes.
speaking to another occultist.
Yes, yes,
That's so
yes.
fun. Is there like a grounding like occult philosophy that you're leaning towards?
Yeah, it's like this group is less of, it's not a college. It is like a fraternity.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. So it's like a club that will bring you knowledge and access to power post
Okay.
graduation, but they very much are a cult. Yes.
Okay. Okay. No, I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
I was very much influenced by, oh my gosh, Aleister Crowley, who's a very problematic
Right.
figure in
Yeah.
history,
Yes.
but a very famous occultist. And
Mm-hmm.
so the Book of Scorn is actually inspired by his Book of Thoth.
Oh, it's so
And his
cool.
and also like Gnostic philosophy was very inspirational,
Yeah.
of this like idea of like the human body is kind of a prison and the
Yeah.
whole goal is to transcend it. Like that's very prevalent in a lot of like cults.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that was kind of like my philosophy of like, oh yeah, I think it's so gnarly. So
Yeah, that's where I guess like this now we're just talking about cults, but my cult is like more rooted in Catholicism, probably because I'm
oh yeah,
Catholic.
that's a
Um,
hey, if you want to talk about the most successful cult of all history,
the Catholic Church.
the Catholic Church.
Um,
Yes, absolutely.
yeah, I was like blown away. We went to Portugal earlier this year, and now I grew up Catholic, so like I've been around all this stuff, but I don't feel like I really understood. Like I don't feel like I really understood what was happening until you're an adult and now you're far from it.
Yeah.
And there now I'm in, a European country that is so old and has all of these relics everywhere. I don't know if you know what a relic is.
Yes, I do know.
Oh my God, I couldn't get over it. Like my friends who were with me, thank God they wanted to go in every church too. Because I was like, please, because every church had like just bones
Bones, yeah.
everywhere. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, no one thinks this is crazy. So that plays a lot into my magic system. And
That's really cool. I love
yeah,
bones.
I
That's
love
really
bones too.
gnarly.
Me too. That's why I was like, your book, like, once I was seeing that pop up on my feed, I was like, yes, this is
Yeah.
everything I love in a book.
No, that's really cool. I love, yeah, the Catholic Church, like there's so many theatrics associated,
Mhm.
like even with just like the incense,
Yes.
the outfits, the bones, the artwork, it's so grandiose and
Mhm.
theatrical, like everything you need to start a successful cult, right? Of just like
Yes.
gravitating people, making things feel so much, bigger and grander. So yeah, I think
Exactly.
that's a very rich rich well to dive into
Oh, yeah.
for a
Well,
book.
and the singing and like singing just makes all of us feel good.
Yes,
So,
yeah. Oh wow. Well, I'm so excited to read your book. I think yeah, I think it's going to be really good. I love also that you changed. Well, I don't. Yeah, I guess like why did you change the year? I'm so curious about that.
I think, oh my gosh, I changed so much from this book. That's why I'm always interested, like, where do people start and then where do they end up? Because it sounds like you changed some things too and had like some
Oh yeah.
discovery drafts before we got to like the plot, which makes me feel a
Mhm.
lot better because that's what I've been doing for sure.
I changed
Um,
continents in mine.
I love that.
Because originally I had it written in the UK, but then
Oh,
I was using North Carolina folklore, and then
mm,
when I sent it to my editor, she was like, "Do you want this edited for like British English or like American?"
yeah.
And I was like, "Wait,
Wait.
I no, I cannot do British English. Please let us do American English." And so then I was like, "Let me." Like I know that there aren't
Yeah,
that many, like big institutions in North Carolina in the 1920s, but it's fine. This is
it's fine.
speculative.
Yeah,
Like
we're
let's go
okay.
with it. So yes, I made major changes. So
Yes.
I totally fully support that in whatever capacity authors have to do things.
Well, that's why I liked that you picked the 1920s too, because there was like an occult and science boom. And same with like the 1880s, where
Yeah.
like people were turning away from the Catholic Church and going to spiritualism. Everyone was into like levitating tables and like knocking on
Yes.
tables and calling in
Yeah.
the spirits. And so I thought that was like a good playground for this type of magic. But the story I was telling and the characters, I was like, it's just modern day, unfortunately. It's still going to be
Okay.
like pre too much social media and iPhone because like I
I
can't.
know. I don't know how to write
I
stories with phones
can't.
in them.
I don't want them to have I don't want to have a phone. So my characters aren't going to have a
Yeah,
phone.
same.
So it's still in like the mid 2000s because I'm like, we're not there yet. Like you might have one, but you're not like attached to it at the
Hmm.
hip like we are now. I would love to do a prequel though in a different time period because I do feel
That's
like
fun.
there's so much happening from, 1860s to like the 1930s with like the occult that is like so ripe for books.
Oh yeah, it
Yeah.
really is, and I'm excited to like see it more in books because I feel
Mhm.
like there's so much. There's just like always so much history and so much knowledge base that we can use for our books. And I
Yeah.
think for me as a fantasy writer, like I like being inspired by the real world and just kind of
Yeah.
elevating it and bringing it out in a new setting in a new way. So I think that's super cool.
Well, I always think it's interesting because I go to a lot of like literary conferences or events, and
Mhm.
it's usually like literary fiction, which I love reading. But I do feel like sometimes speculative fiction gets like we get like a pat on the back from publishing, like, oh, that's cute. Like you wrote a little book with
Yeah,
magic. But I feel like speculative fiction is the one of the best ways to like analyze humanity and social events and everything going on in the world because you can kind of take it like one step removed
exactly. Yeah.
and then really dive deeper and kind of trick the reader and be like,
Yes.
oh, you didn't realize we were exploring this really deep theme because there's
Yeah.
dragons, but we are.
Have you read Blood Over Brighthaven?
No, but I have it, and it's been on my TBR
Oh
list for
my
like
gosh,
forever.
that book changed my brain chemistry. I
Oh
mean,
my
talk
gosh,
about like a
okay.
speculative work,
Mm-hmm.
like mirroring societal ails. I think it's such a brilliant piece of work. And actually, that book was self published, and then
Oh,
got a trad deal. So yeah, lots of cred for
that's
indie
been
authors out there.
happening a lot lately, which is really awesome to see, like, indie authors like working their asses off to get their
Yeah.
books out and then getting noticed by the big elusive trad pub industry.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like publishing is a hard game, like no
Mhm.
matter how you do it, right? And I think um like fundamentally you can't predict, right? Like
Yeah.
you can't predict what's going to happen, like what's going to resonate with readers, like is it even the right moment for this book to be
Right.
out? And so yeah, like authors have started taking bets on themselves instead of relying on somebody else to take a bet on them. And I think it's worked, in their favors. And I think it's just a testament that your story could, your story still has value and it
Yeah.
still has readership. It's just about like the market sometimes. And so
Mhm.
it's a tough place. So I tell like future writers or writers who are trying to get into publishing, it's just like you have to believe in your story
Yeah.
above like everything else
Mhm.
because yeah, because the market is going to do whatever it's doing, but you have to really believe in it if you want to see it out there, and it'll find its place eventually. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like you're going to stick with indie publishing for your next project?
I think if I serialize this book, I
Mm.
will stay on the self publishing route. But I think for my future projects, maybe I'll query them. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see. I think it would be great to have like a thought partner. I do love
Mhm.
collaborating.
Yeah.
I think having resources is obviously helpful, like having a publishing house and seeing what I could do with that kind of platform, I think could be helpful. But at the end of the day, like I still feel like authors are going to have to be their biggest advocate and
Yeah.
champions. And so, no matter how you do it as an author, I think you still have to do a lot of work to get noticed and get your books out there. And so, yeah, so we'll see if hybrid publishing is in my future. But regardless, I'm just excited to like continue writing stories. And I think that
Yeah.
was one thing I was worried about was like after having done so much work to publish something. I was like, am I going to lose my creative drive and inspiration? But that has not been the truth, and it really has been the opposite. Like I feel even more excited to share
That's
stories.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, wait, you said serialized. So was this written as a standalone with series potential?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I wrote it as a standalone, but it has the kind of the mystery slash horror trope where like the
Mm,
door is kind of left cracked open at the
right.
end. And so, like I said, the ending is like satisfactory, and like everything that happened, it's explained. But then there's still one piece that's like, wait, actually, what does that mean?
Mm,
What's gonna what do you mean?
that's awesome.
So I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world. Like if this is the only book that comes out, I think it's perfect as it is. But there's also still like a larger world and still some
Yeah,
intrigue left up to be determined.
so cool. Love that. Standalone series potential. That's my favorite.
Mhm.
Okay, is there anything else that you wanted to say about Forsyth Conservatory before we go into my rapid fire
I
questions?
would love to talk about like young adult versus adult and new adult
Ooh, yes. Let's get into that.
because yes, because I feel like so this book is adult and it has like adult themes and adult relationships. But I've seen some people talking about like, oh well, maybe it's like young adult, and it's just like such an interesting topic because
Mm,
there's some kind of gravity associated with like, oh, if it's out of school then it's young adult, right?
yes,
And
yeah.
I've been trying to peel that back and say like, hey, adults go to school, guys. Like you have college, you have graduate school, you have professional school.
Mhm.
And so that to me has kind of just been an ongoing conversation that I've had with my fellow authors of like, how do we define
Mm,
our genre and our readership, and especially nowadays where young adult is being read so predominantly by adults.
right.
So
Yeah, I find this really interesting. It's also been top of mind. I wonder if you have the same theory that I do. I sometimes feel sometimes when I'm writing my book, because it has like yours, like an academic ish adjacent setting, has magic. We are women writing this. I sometimes feel like when women write speculative fiction, everyone says it's young adult. I don't know what it is, but it's like a constant. I don't know. I don't know if it's like the magic portion or what, but I do feel like
mm,
speculative fiction, especially written by women, more than anything, always people are like, "Oh, this is young adult. Like this should be categorized as young adult."
yeah, so like kind of the infantilization of like
Yeah.
female authors and in their
Yeah.
work. That is interesting. I haven't thought of it through that lens, but I think you're onto something. I think that makes sense because it's almost like, yeah, like, oh, that's so cute,
Right, right.
versus like men fantasy writers. I mean, Brandon Sanderson writing about, this mythical creatures, like it's
Mhm.
like men can do it, but then when women do it, it's like cutesy. So or maybe it's like the romantic elements. I don't know.
True.
Yeah,
Mm.
but I find it incredibly frustrating. More so, like for the sake of actual young adults, because when I
Yeah.
was growing up, young adult was actually young adult. Like it was characters that were in their teens or preteens, and they
Mhm.
acted like young adults. Like they were not acting like adults and having those types of relationships. So I, if anything, it makes me kind of want to write real young adult
Yeah.
for that readership, because I just feel like now we're kind of just trying to satisfy the adults who are reading young adult, which is
That's so
problematic,
true.
because then you get into like, oh, like, are you writing sex on the page, and is like a 13-year-old
Mhm.
reading the, I don't know, like stuff like that.
No, that's very true because I feel like young adult as a genre is actually shrinking.
Exactly.
even if, like you said, like there might be a lot of young adult books being published, but a lot of those young adult books have 18-year-old characters who are acting like adults.
Exactly.
Yeah, instead of like when I was a young adult reading like fantasy series, they were true teenagers because I've
Exactly.
reread those series and I'm like, oh, you are a teenager. I would never make these decisions now. But 15-year-old me reading this was like, you do that, make that horrible decision. So I agree. I do feel like the young adult genre is like fading a little, shrinking because there's a lot of adult readers. And maybe that is it. I think a lot of adults who maybe grew up liking fantasy or like YA fantasy, reading YA fantasy, are writing YA work, but it's like for the adult readers, really.
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah, I think there's definitely like a dilution happening, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
excited that there is this new category of new adults, and I do
Yeah.
kind of want all of the all of the adult young adults to go into that, and so that there can actually be, the definition based on the audience and not just the
Yeah.
um yeah, like the style of writing or like the themes and things like that, because I think it is
Mhm.
getting a little bit muddled. But yeah, I always think that that's a interesting conversation, and like especially with these themes like you were saying with like magic and all of that, like how you categorize.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Are we ready for a rapid fire question?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. This is, I still start with this one. It's like not the best rapid fire question. It's like actually pretty profound. So I'm sorry. But what is a piece of art that has had a major impact on you?
Oh my gosh. Well, I saw a Van Gogh exhibit in Melbourne, Australia one year, and
Mm,
it made me cry.
I love
And I don't
that.
know if it was because it was like 1:30
Mm.
in the morning, because like it was, yeah, it was sold out. It was beyond sold out that the museum was doing 1:30 a.m. entries. But I remember, I don't even remember like the specific painting that I saw, but I just remember
Mm.
like the globules of like oil, and just like looking at it from the side and seeing like just how thickly he laid it on. Like he was
Yeah.
like no regrets. Like we're gonna paint this canvas like
Yeah.
nothing else. And I just, the like intensity that I saw in his work
Mm.
really mirrored like my emotions and how I felt about art. And so yeah, I cried.
I love that. We all should be crying at art, in my opinion.
Truly.
The best art makes me cry, usually.
Mhm.
Which character from your own work would you grab a drink with?
Ooh, Aspen.
Love it.
Your girl's free. What are you doing tonight? No, I freaking love Aspen. I think he's so charismatic and charming. And
Mm,
then, like, yes, I would be. Yes, I want to be seduced.
yeah, perfect. What is something totally unrelated to writing right now that you're obsessed with?
Oh my gosh, I have so many hyperfixations. Are you sure you want
Yes,
that?
yes, please, because I'm the same.
um, Okay, well, we did talk about medieval fencing, but right
Mhm.
now I'm planning a Bridgerton retreat for my
Ooh,
friends.
that is so fun.
And I want to have Pall Mall, and I want to have fencing. Maybe there'll be a hot air balloon. Who
Oh
knows?
my gosh, that'd be awesome.
I want there to be some kind of like balloon race at least. I don't even know. But I do this thing with my friends that I do like bookish retreats,
Oh,
like
that's so cute.
literally just for my friends. Like we did a Fourth Wing one last year, and we had like a
Fun.
whole like dragon theme thing, and we had threshing and egg hunting and all that stuff. And so now I want to do it for Bridgerton because the next season is coming out in January.
Yes.
So yeah, we're gonna have a whole thing. But yeah, that is my hyperfixation right
Oh my
now.
God, that is amazing. Um, okay, so as someone who loves reality TV shows and specifically competition reality TV shows, is there a reality show that you think you would totally crush?
Oh, The Secret Millionaire. Have you seen that
Oh,
one?
yes. Yeah.
It's so good.
Ah.
I Listen, my ideal version of myself would crush it. Would I actually
Yeah.
in practice crush it? I don't know, but the idea of just like lying my pants off, like that sounds so much fun. Like sign me
Yes.
up. I will dahlia that all day long.
And then what would your warning label say?
Oh, my warning label. Hmm. I'm very impulsive, so I think like something with like high impulsivity, like
Yeah.
they make a major life decision on short notice.
That's perfect. Yes. And then where can listeners connect with you and find your work?
I think the biggest way to connect is through Instagram. I am very millennial. I don't do TikTok. So Instagram is the best way. I'm a.l.sterling with an E. And my website, that's where you can buy my books directly from me and my interactive story box. So that's alsterlingauthor.com. And yeah, and I'm also part of the North Carolina Writers Network. I'm a regional rep for Charlotte. And we do like monthly programming, like writing workshops, writing saloons, just like fun social hangouts. So some of those are online too. So be on the lookout for those. But that's pretty much it.
Perfect. Well, I'll sign off with the listeners and we'll hang back. But thank you so much for coming today on Pen to Pot.
Yay! Thank you. This was so much fun, Michaela. You're so fun to talk to.
Thanks again for listening to my conversation with A.L. Sterling about her debut, Forsyth Conservatory. Forsyth Conservatory is out now, so get it wherever books are sold. Be sure to grab a copy or request it at your local bookstores and/or libraries. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, share it with your writer friends or friends who read and want to pull back the curtain a little bit more on an author's journey. If you are listening to us on Apple or Spotify, you can go ahead and follow so you never miss an episode, as well as leaving a review, which always helps us. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.